Ubisoft has acknowledged recent buyout reports. Ubisoft has acknowledged recent buyout reports saying it, quote, regularly reviews options. Which is a little funny. They're like, no, this is very normal. We're always considering going private. Yeah, we are often doing this very desperate thing. They say, of course, in the last week's report from Bloomberg, where they discussed how the Guillemot family was considering a buyout from Tencent, that technically, that's like a little clunky. I get what they're saying, but technically what they were considering is pairing up with Tencent, and then they would buy out the rest of the company together, because the Guillemot family, most of their wealth is in the Ubisoft stock. That's where a lot of it is, if not the vast majority of it. They aren't sitting on cash. So like what made Elon Musk able to buy Twitter was that he had all of these shares of Tesla worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. So he could sell off a lot of shares, and he could take out loans with those shares as collateral for the loans, which allows him to take out money tax-free at super low interest rates. So there's multiple ways he could have done it, but he had access to a lot of cash. The Guillemot family, they don't have access to a ton of cash. They just don't, okay? They have high like net worths based on the book value of the shares, but they aren't sitting on like huge cash piles or something. You know, a lot of people I think misunderstand what the term billionaire means. It just means you own stuff, you have assets worth that amount. Whether you could sell them and get that is a sort of separate issue. It's the old, you remember Corpse Bride, that movie from like 2005 or whatever with Tim Burton, where you have the two families, the fishmonger family, and then you have the aristocrat family that Johnny Depp is trying to marry into. The aristocratic family, they have multiple lines where they say, oh, we're land rich, but cash broke. It's because they own a lot of land. So on paper, they're aristocrats. They're extremely wealthy, but they don't actually have any money, because in order to get money, they'd have to sell off all the land that they hold, which is not how you retain your value, right? So in their case, they were like the Guillemot family. They were wealthy on paper, but they didn't actually have cash, whereas the fishmongers had tons of cash, even though they were not actually, according to the book value, like they were not as wealthy as the other family. Did you expect to hear a comparison to Corpse Bride in this segment? Bet you didn't, but that's what you get at Luke Stevens Live. They continue on with all of this. Ubisoft has now noted in a statement to Eurogamer, quote, Ubisoft has noted recent press speculation regarding potential interests around the company. It regularly reviews all its strategic options in the interest of its stakeholders and will inform the market if and when appropriate. Okay. The statement continues, the company reiterates that management is currently focused on executing its strategy centered on two core verticals, open world adventures and games as a service native experiences. Last week, Ubisoft stock increased over 30% due to recent rumors of a potential buyout. And as for if the buyout happens or not, and whether it will improve Ubisoft's standing in the games industry remains to be seen, but developers who spoke to Insider Gaming are understandably nervous about the future. My stance remains unchanged with this, okay? In my view, this doesn't, like a buyout, let's say Tencent, Ubisoft, or the Guillemot family, they come together, they buy out, Ubisoft take it private. Presumably that means the Guillemot family stays in control. That doesn't fix anything. Ubisoft's problems are managerial. It's in terms of the vision, it's in terms of the direction they've taken the company, and some of these big creative choices that have been made. Being privately held, if anything, makes that worse. The only thing you could potentially see it do is like see a reduction in the number of live service games that are needed to boost revenues while they kind of rebuild. So you could see a temporary sort of refocusing on more pro-consumer games to build up public value and goodwill. But even that, like Tencent, they are like the kings of microtransactions and live service stuff. Like if they're taking over, I would not expect things to magically get like more pro-consumer. Maybe they do, because you're right, Tencent does have its hand in a lot of different little companies. They own little slivers of tons of companies. They even own, I think, a good chunk of From Software, don't they? Let's see. I'm pretty sure they do. I think it's them and PlayStation. Kanakoa. Where's the full breakdown? Maybe, no, that is the full breakdown. No, I'm mistaken. Oh, no, it is. It is. Okay, it's just labeled weird. It is Tencent. Tencent owns 16% of From Software. Sony owns 14%. And then the Kanakoa Corporation owns about 70% of From Software. So, like, they have their hands in a lot of pots. Some of the pots they own make amazing games. Some of the pots that they have their hand in make sort of mediocre games or live service games that print money. So it can go multiple different directions. But once Tencent owns a company, they tend to really pump out the live service stuff. They really, really do. Yeah, they have so many different projects. Riot Games, wholly owned. Sumo Group, they own that. Turtle Rock Studios. Fat Shark. Epic Games, they own 35% of Epic. They own 42% of Don't Nod. They own the majority of Techland. They own just under 10% of Ubisoft. That could change soon, though. Paradox, they own 10%. Like, they have their hands in so many pots, you probably don't even realize. Shift Up, they own 35% of that. Bluebird Team, that just did Silent Hill 2 remake, 22% they own of that. So they have their hands in a lot of games that make some good stuff. Whether they go, if they fully own a company, that's a separate issue. But Tencent's huge. Tencent is huge, okay? They're kind of the sleeping giant of the industry in many ways. But I don't think if they take over that magically things get better for Ubisoft. I think it will, if anything else, just empower them to continue making the same mistakes they did before. It's important to stress, as Tom Henderson says here, that Tencent and the Guillemot family are rumored to be considering the buyout. The buyout would undoubtedly mean mass layoffs, with Yves still likely in charge, who is ultimately responsible for Ubisoft's current state. It's still not brilliant news. The best cause of action would be an upper management shakeup over anything IMO. But I don't trust or think that Yves will let the ship sail without him in the captain's seat. I think that's absolutely true. And the thing that is really important to understand about this whole thing is Tencent. So with this, there were all sorts of stipulations, okay? Yeah, the latest deal makes Tencent Ubisoft's single biggest shareholder with an overall stake of 11%, which can be further increased to as much as 17%. It also values the maker of Assassin's Creed and Tom Clancy's video game franchises at $10 billion. Or around 80 euros per share, well above Tuesday's stock price closing level of 43.5. Tencent considers the value of AC and Tom Clancy at $10 billion. Ubisoft's current market cap is like 1.8 billion, and they're valuing it at 10 billion just for the franchise, which shows how little confidence there is in the management. They think the franchises under proper management, if they're run by people who know what they're doing, those franchises should be worth $10 billion on their own. And yet, the company's only worth a little under 2. You have to screw up pretty hard to have a valuation that off, right? Like, a way that you could say it is, think of it as like a box, okay? There's just a little box, okay? In the box, I tell you, there is $1,000 cash in here. If I'm really trustworthy, if you think that I am reliable, the price you would pay for this box is maybe $999. Because you're like, if it's $1,000 in there, I'd like to make a little bit of money for the risk of it maybe not being in there. But if you're super reliable, I'll pay you $999. But if I'm untrustworthy and I tell you there's $1,000 in this box, you're probably not going to pay $999. You might pay $800 or $600, depending on how likely you think it is that I'm being true or honest. In the case of Ubisoft, to just be one-to-one with this analogy, I tell you there's $1,000 in here and you're only willing to give me $200 for it. You do not trust me at all if that's the offer you're willing to make to me, right? Like you think the odds are pretty damn high. I'm lying and that there's nothing good in here, that I'm not reliable. And that's where Ubisoft is right now. They're telling you there's $1,000 in here and you're only willing to, like, investors are only willing to give them $200. That's crazy. That's crazy, but that's what we're dealing with. That's how low the confidence level is in the Guillemot family leadership. The move also caps a difficult 4-year period at Ubisoft, where there has been a succession of new game delays and sexual harassment allegations that led to a revamp of top management. The firm's share price has dropped in that time from about 100 euros to less than 44. Today, it trades at like 13, 14. After the speculation of a buyout, prior to that, it was trading as low as 9 euros. That's how far it fell off since this article was written in September of 2022. China's largest social network and gaming firm, whose investment in Gaimon Brothers amounts to 300 million euros, $296 million, also has the right to raise its direct stake in Ubisoft to 9.99% from 4.5%, which they eventually did. So they now own 9.99%. This is also interesting. This is why, to their credit, the Gaimon family were smart with this. As part of this agreement, I think Ubisoft knew that there was a potential for the stock price to drop even further, which is why they did this. They did this deal with Tencent ahead of time to try and lock them up, because look what they did. This is as of 2022, okay? So this was back then. Tencent will not be able to sell its shares for 5 years, beyond which the Gaimon family will have a preemptive right to buy the shares. So if they ever want to dump them, the Gaimon family gets to buy them up first to retain control. It's also said that Tencent pledged not to increase its direct stake in the French games maker beyond 9.99% in capital for a period of 8 years. This is why it was kind of brilliant with this, okay? Because the only way that they could do this deal with Ubisoft and gain control of it is if the Gaimon family partnered with them and basically let them out of this clause and voided it out. Then they could do it. But the Gaimon family has to be okay with it. So Tencent's salivating because, again, they consider just AC and Tom Clancy, they consider those franchises worth $10 billion. And they're looking at Ubisoft right now and they're saying, we could get the entire company for, if we partner with the Gaimon family, for $1 billion. 50-50 partners. We could get the whole thing for $1 billion. That's a 90% discount. That's a great deal. But the only way they can do it is if the Gaimon family is on board. And this creates this weird mix where the Gaimon family needs Tencent and Tencent needs the Gaimon family. And they both have parts of it that they like. They both have reasons they like it. The Gaimon family, they like that they would retain control of the company, presumably. But the Tencent side of things, they're like, well, we got to make money and you're not making money as things are. So you need to change some stuff. You need to make some major changes. And they probably want the Gaimon family to leave management. They might be like, you can still own it, but you need to leave and put other people in charge, which I think would be good. But then Yves Guillemot is like, well, I do not want to leave. I want to stay in power. That was like weirdly German. I'm sorry. You get what I mean, though. He wants to stay in his position of leadership. He doesn't want to give it up. So now they're just like fighting each other and they don't know what to do, but there's not many options. I mean, they can't wait 8 years. Tencent can't. Ubisoft, if it keeps going the way it is, it won't be around in 8 years, at least not in its current form. Tencent, which bought its first 5% of Ubisoft for 66 euros per share in 2018, is also providing the Gaimon family's holding firm with a long-term loan to refinance its debt. The Gaimon family, they're tight with Ubisoft, or with Tencent. Tencent has basically been providing them low interest debt for the last 6 years to refinance different things that they've done. They're pretty buddy-buddy. The deal structure does not seem to be a change to the long-standing strategic partnership between the two firms, said Matthew Canterman, director of research at Ball Metaverse Research Partners. Quote, overall, it's a bet by Tencent that Ubisoft can improve its execution and unlock value in its catalog of IP. The pair can create new mobile games based on that IP, and they can bring existing Ubisoft titles into China once the regulatory climate improves. The deal will likely help Tencent offset pressure in its home market, where the gaming regulator has not granted any new game licenses to Tencent since June last year. This is the reason Tencent has gone elsewhere. It's weird. You might not realize it if you live in the West, but Tencent relies on different Chinese regulatory bodies to give them basically licenses. You know, when you go like hunting in the US and you need to get a license or a tag for like an elk if you're going to hunt an elk, or a deer if you're going to hunt a deer, and then you can pursue that and capture it, and then you're good. In China, like, it works a similar way sort of with the gaming side of things. If you want to make a video game, you have to get a license to make a video game. And if you don't get a license granted, you can't do it. It's really weird. But that's why they have all this money and they're just going elsewhere and they're buying stakes in different companies. So they're not technically making more games. They just get a cut of the pie every time another company makes a game that's good. It's very weird. Overall revenue in the world's biggest video game market declined for the first time in January to June, a report showed, as it continued to reel from increasing government oversight. China began intense scrutiny of its high-growth tech sector around 2 years ago, in part alarmed by what regulators called, quote, disorderly expansion of capital caused by acquisition sprees. True. So with all of this, the point is Tencent and Ubisoft are simpatico. They are buddy-buddy. And Tencent is the cash cow that can dig Ubisoft out of the troubles that they are in. But in order to do that, Tencent is going to want major changes made. Part of Tencent's whole goal was for Ubisoft to unlock power and value in its brands. And in the last few years, they've actually ruined a lot of the goodwill and value of those brands. I would say the value of the AC brand after the AC Shadows debacle is potentially at an all-time low, which is remarkable to be in this position. AC for a long time was like guaranteed, every time it's announced, it's going to pop off. Now it's like considered cringe and uncool to a whole new level, which I guess for the culture war guys, maybe this is really good news because Tencent, all they care about is the money. And if they come in and they tell the Guimau family, like, no, all of those like different teams you have for increasing the political correctness of your games or whatever, all those people are fired. You're going to do this way. We're going to do booty shorts on all the playable characters. That's what we're doing. If Tencent wanted to come in and do that, Tencent could. They have that bargaining power if they wanted to make major changes. And the Guimau family, it seems like they care mostly about control. They don't really care that much about the brands. They don't care that much about the employees. They don't care that much about all this other stuff. They primarily want to retain control of Ubisoft. So if they can do that, and all they have to do is go and kind of rework their strategic outlook, I think they'd rather do that than lose control. Time will tell. But you might be in a spot where you get games that are less PC and games, but games that are more monetized. So you get like a much more aggressive in-game store, but you won't have the same like stereotypical Ubisoft art direction and stuff. So it's very interesting. Ubisoft is at a weird spot right now. Anybody who's like, they're going bankrupt literally doesn't know what the word bankrupt means if they think that. Bankruptcy tends to be directly tied with cash flows, with how money is managed within a firm. And Ubisoft right now, they have severe problems, but they are not in a spot where they're not taking cash in. They are. It's just, I think they have too many employees for one. And they have a lot of projects that have just been in development hell and are going nowhere that frankly should be reworked as far as I'm concerned. But nothing that's like you can't dig yourself out of. There's investors that say Ubisoft should be about half the size it is now. They should have about 10,000 employees for the amount of money they make, which is crazy. But that's another thing is if Tencent takes them over, there's a decent sized chance that Tencent comes in and says, okay, you got to cut like half your workforce. Like you thought the layoffs in like Microsoft were bad. You thought the layoffs with this company or that company were bad. Some investors are saying that Ubisoft should cut 10,000 jobs. And you think Tencent is going to be like, well, no, we'll give them really nice severance packages. No, Tencent are like, they're some of the most cutthroat of the cutthroat. Okay. Like there's a reason Tencent is like the number 2 gaming company on earth in terms of revenue. Okay. They do not mess around. That's why they're making a deal with the devil right now in a lot of ways. Okay. Like anybody who thinks that this is like not that big of a deal, it is. It really is. Who's number one? Number one is PlayStation, then I believe Tencent, and then Xbox / Microsoft, specifically after the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And then like 4th place is Nintendo with like $11 billion in annual revenue. Whereas Microsoft is at like 25 or something, or 22 or 23. Like Nintendo is at half of what 3rd place is. It's wild. How long until Tencent makes their own console? I don't think they need to. I don't think it would make money. Like there's no reason to do that. Why make your own console when you can just make mobile games? Everybody has phones, don't you? You know? Embracer Group's way down there. Embracer Group is at like 3 billion or something. It's not one of the tops. Ubi have 19K staff. That is absolutely insane. 10K layoffs is conservative. Yeah, it's a lot of it is they have a lot of huge studios. They have a lot of very like pro worker policies. So like they just recently announced, I think like a week ago, that they're going back to 3-day work in office, 2-day work from home. Up until like a few weeks ago, it was 2 days in the office, 3 days working from home, which you start to understand why they might be having productivity issues. But they've gotten to a point where they haven't done like major downsizing or layoffs in a very, very long time. So they have a lot of teams, a lot of positions, a lot of studios and projects that frankly should have been cut a long time ago, according to investors. And so they just have a lot of bloat. He took my thing.